what if I told you that in the year of our Lord 2025, there was a Stasis Titan build that was not only able to compete with the likes of Prismatic, Solar, Arc, or even Strand Titan, and in some cases, dare I say, surpass it? Well, dear viewer, that is the build we are covering here today. And let me first start by showing you exactly what this build can do. And keep in mind that I'm in the firing range here, and there are no enemies present whatsoever. So take a look. I'm going to do my uppercut melee. I'm going to do another one. And I'm just going to break all the crystals, just like this. Collect all the shards that came from them. And, well, would you look at that? I have got my melee back. I have maximum stacks of frost armor. I have a full armor charge bar. And I can just keep going. I can keep repeating the process over and over again. I don't have to use my SMG to break them. I can use my Mint Retrograde, for example. Does the job much quicker, but a bit less ammo efficient. I can just keep going over and over again. I can make my crystals. I can break them all. I can pick up the shards. I can do it all over again. So today I am going to show you exactly how to do this, how to triple the damage of your melees, how to make sure they always come back, and some side stats like constant healing, bonus damage resistance, and bonus stats to our weapons as well. And I am calling it the ultimate Stasis Titan build. So we're going to start with what's probably the first question you had, and that is, how on earth am I getting my melee charges back infinitely without getting any kills whatsoever? And well, that is down to the two aspects that we are using with this build. Obviously, we are on Stasis Titan, and the first one is Tectonic Harvest. Tectonic Harvest states that shattering a stasis crystal or frozen target creates a stasis shard. This shard grants melee energy when picked up by you or your allies. It also says that while you have Tectonic Harvest equipped, picking up stasis shards also grants you frost armor. We'll get more on that later, but basically, because of this, the stasis shards that we get from breaking our crystals will give us back our melee energy. Second, a change happened to this aspect recently, around 2 weeks ago, where now the amount of stasis shards that you can create is infinite. There used to be a cap on it where you could only create, I think, anywhere between 10 and 15, and then it would stop, and it would be like a 10-second cooldown, but now that cooldown is completely gone, so you can just continue to keep making crystals, breaking them to make shards, and they will never ever stop making shards. Small caveat to that, there is a global cooldown, so if you make too many shards, it will stop for, again, about 5 or 6 seconds. You will realistically never end up in that position, just something I thought you'd be aware of. For all intents and purposes, it is infinite, there is no cooldown. Second, we also have the Howl of the Storm aspect. This aspect was recently changed as well. It states that while sliding, activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of stasis energy forwards that freezes enemy combatants, slows enemy players, and creates stasis crystals. Plus, it also gives you a second melee charge. So that's why I have 2 Shiver Strike charges rather than the default 1. Now, previously, before this update came out, the formation looked very different to what it does now, as you can see on the clip playing in the background. And now it spawns basically 2 of the old formation in sort of a slight angle away from each other. So we get double the crystals, which means we spawn double the amount of shards than we did previously. And because there is no cap on these shards anymore, that just means that we are getting way more energy all the time. So that, dear viewer, is what allows us to spam our melees indefinitely without the need for kills at all. And putting it all together lets you just spam your melees over and over, as you saw in the beginning of the video. And with the right setup, you only need 1 charge really to kind of get yourself going. As you saw there, I only started with 1, and I can just keep going infinitely. You guys get the idea. Now, taking a look at the rest of our subclass to more so flesh this out, just so I can explain it better, we are using the Glacier Grenade as well, because this is just going to be another source of crystals, and it spawns 5 of them to be exact. So if I put this down, I can break all 5 crystals, and then it'll give me 5 more shards, which again is just going to make it so we get our melees back way faster. We are locked to Glacial Quake because there are no additional stasis supers in the game yet. I would love for that to change. And a small note I did want to mention about Glacial Quake is that you may not know this, but when the super ends, it gives you both of your melee charges back. So if I use both of my Howl of the Storm charges here, I pop my super, and then when I'm about to exit my super, as you can see here, I have now been given both of my melee charges back. So that is just an intrinsic property of Behemoth. It works like this on Prismatic as well. It always gives you whatever amount of melee charges you have back. I believe that's because the super overrides your melee ability into a special one. It has to make sure that it has charges to work with that specific attack, but just something to be aware of. Then moving on to the fragments, the first one we have is Whisper of Rending. This will make it so primary ammo weapons do increased damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets. So if you are using a primary ammo weapon in this build, build like we are, and I am going to recommend, it's just going to make it so when you break the crystals, it's just very easy. It takes like little to no bullets at all. Just to show you what this looks like if I took the fragment off, so I'll just place my crystal down and then we'll get rid of rending here. It takes noticeably longer to break your crystals with your primary ammo weapon. In fact, it takes more than a magazine, where it previously did not, and it just feels worse. So in my opinion, it's just very nice to have this fragment on because it just makes the build feel a lot nicer to use. And I believe that is a crucial factor for making a build, you know, holistically very good. Speaking of convenient fragments, the second one we are taking is Whisper of Conduction. This will make it so nearby stasis shards track to your position. Again, it's not really a necessary fragment, it's just convenience. However, it is such a nice convenience. I can stand all the way over here, I can break these crystals, and then when those shards spawn in, they will slowly start tracking towards me. It means that I don't have to physically go over there and run to them to pick them up. It's just really nice. Basically, always use Whisper of Conduction whenever you're making a stasis build, no matter the context, just use it. It's just so nice. And it's going to synergize a lot with some of our armor mods, but we'll get to that later. It also gives you plus 10 health and plus 10 super, so, you know, double bonus stats. Very nice. After that, we have Whisper of Rhyme, again, another essential fragment for any stasis build because of the survivability aspect. It states that your frost armor has increased duration and maximum stack count. This is going to take your default stack count maximum of 5 all the way to 8, and at 8 stacks of frost armor, you are going to have a 50% damage resistance. Now, where are we getting frost armor from? Well, of course, that is Tectonic Harvest. It says at the bottom, while Tectonic Harvest is equipped, picking up stasis shards grants stacks of frost armor. And because we are literally going to be making crystals 24/7, there is basically going to be a non-stop supply of crystals. We are gonna have maximum frost armor all the time. Also, picking up these shards heals you, so remember that as well. It gives you both damage resist and heals. And collecting a new shard will refresh your frost armor stack to the maximum. And with Whisper of Rhyme on, it also makes your frost armor duration last around 14 seconds, which is a lot considering that a 50% damage resistance that you can have all the time, it's a lot of time. It's more than Woven Mail. You know, you only get 5 seconds on Strand with Thread of Warding. And on Stasis, we not only have a stronger percentage damage resist, where, you know, Woven Mail is 45, Frost Armor is 50, it also lasts longer. Finally, we have Whisper of Hunger. This one states that it increases the melee energy gained from picking up stasis shards, and it also has a whopping -20 melee penalty. And I know that kind of sounds bad on the surface, but believe me, it's not actually that bad. It's fine. And I do want to show you the difference between having this fragment and not having it. So I'm just going to make 2 of my full Howl of the Storm volleys here, and then I'm going to take off Whisper of Hunger. And just pay attention to how quickly I get back my melee charges. I am still going to get them back fairly rapidly. However, it's not quite the same, and in fact, it doesn't give all of my charges back. It only gives, you know, about 1.5. The rest I have to rely on regen. So now if I do the same thing again, but I put Whisper of Hunger back on, as you can see, if you take a look at my melee energy, it's filling up way faster. Much, much better. And I have both of my charges back, and I can then start the loop like we already know. So just for convenience sake, even though it takes away 20 melee, I very much recommend having Whisper of Hunger because it just makes the overall gameplay loop that much smoother. And also it reduces the time between you being able to use your abilities a lot more, so you can spam your abilities faster. Furthermore, if you have good stats like I do here, it actually isn't, you know, the end of the world with regards to the damage of the crystals themselves. And by the way, yes, because these crystals are technically from a melee ability, they do scale with the melee stats, so yes, don't worry about that. The last thing I wanted to mention is that some of you may be saying, why not Whisper of Fissures? Because it states that it increases the damage and the size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. Now, the reason we are taking this is because the actual damage bonus that you get from this is not a lot. If you actually dig into it, according to the Destiny Data Compendium, this is a maximum 25 extra points of damage added onto your stasis crystal shatters and your frozen target shatters. And considering that a singular stasis crystal does anywhere between like 160 to 200 damage, percentage-wise, it actually isn't that much to have 25 damage more, and that's at maximum. It's on a blast radius, so that's something to consider. Maximum, maybe a 20% buff. In my opinion, I would much rather have more consistent melee energy regeneration than just a little bit more damage on my stasis explosions. If I had a 5th fragment slot, I would probably put it for Whisper of Fissures, but because we don't, I personally would prefer Whisper of Hunger. So circling going back to our melee damage for just a second, despite our stats taking a hit with Whisper of Hunger. If they are good, this is fine. However, this also leads us onto our exotic of choice. And for this build, you have two choices. You can either go Synthoceps or Worm God Caress. And in my opinion, Synthoceps is just better, really. Because with Worm Gods, yes, the damage buff is higher. You get a 400% or 5x melee damage increase at maximum stacks, which isn't all too hard to get with this build, admittedly, but it does not buff your super damage, whereas Synthoceps is a 165% or 2.65x damage increase to your melee, but it also buffs the damage of your super. It buffs it by 50%. I'm sure you all know Behemoth or Glacial Quake is a very nasty super. You can clear loads of ads with this. Even high health targets take lots of damage from Glacial Quake, and that is not to be underestimated with the damage bonus you get with Synthoceps. Plus, you don't have to build up the stacks of Synthoceps. All you need to be is surrounded, and once you're in there, you have the damage bonus ready to go. No need to get kills, and I personally prefer that, and it is what I would recommend. However, if you want to go with Worm Gods, it's totally up to you. Me personally, though, I prefer Synthoceps. Now, let's go a little more in depth into our stats, and of course, because this is a melee focus build, you are going to want to focus your stat pool into the melee stat, because if you manage to get this over 100, if you go all the way to 200, for example, at 200 stat, your melees are going to be dealing 30% more damage. I have mine at 40. However, I am increasing it via melee fonts on my gloves, which is going to take me to 180, so not too far off 200. And yes, like I said earlier, the melee stat does increase the damage of your Howl of the Storm crystal detonations on top of Synthoceps. And remember, this is a multiplicative melee damage increase where everything else in the game is additive. The melee stat is multiplicative. As for your other stats, we are also going with 100 grenade to make it so that we get our crystal grenade back faster. I also have 100 super so that I get my Glacial Quake back the fastest. And just because of the armor I have, I also have ended up with 100 health, which I guess is fine. If your armor is different, you can probably prioritize something like class more. But to be honest, having high health in PvE is never bad, so this is honestly fine. As for what armor pieces I use to get to this specific stat distribution, my helmet is a Paragon with a tertiary stat in Grenade, and my Synthoceps is again Paragon with a tertiary stat in Grenade. I have a chest piece that is Brawler with a tertiary stat in Grenade again, a Grenadier piece with a tertiary stat in Health, and finally another Brawler with a tertiary stat in Grenade. So if you want to, pause or take a screenshot of those, but we'll also have a graphic on screen to represent what those are, so you can just pause and have a look to find out what armor you need to get if you want to replicate my stats. So now, as for your weapons, I'm just going with Mint Retrograde and then a primary like Yeartide Apex, preferably a solar primary, as that will have some synergy with our armor set bonuses, but ultimately it doesn't matter. This is just a nice bonus. I just really like Yeartide Apex. Anyone who has this gun will tell you that this is the best feeling primary that we've had in years. I don't know what it is about this weapon, it just feels amazing. It also looks amazing. And I've gone for the roll of Heal Clip and Chaos Reshaped. Honestly, any roll with Chaos Reshaped will do just fine. Then Mint, I have Rewind Bait, doesn't really matter. It's a Rocket Pulse, it's gonna do 1,000,000 damage anyway, doesn't matter. But the main point is the Rocket Pulse, or any sort of micro missile source, does have specific synergies with this build, or synergies with our armor. And as you can see, I am wearing 2 pieces of the Ion Adapter set bonus. Now, this set bonus states that final blows with a rocket launcher, grenade launcher, or micro missile temporarily decrease incoming area of effect damage. And yep, that works with kills, but it also works if you destroy stasis crystals, because they somehow count as killable entities, visible by the small timer on the left of my screen, which doesn't have a name. So that is the Ion Adapter set bonus. It works when you break stasis crystals, which is pretty awesome because we're going to be making loads of stasis crystals, and the actual damage resistance percentage is 15%, I think 15% to splash damage specifically. So it's not all damage, it is only splash damage, but with how easy it is to trigger for simply throwing down a crystal, again, an effect which doesn't require any kills is a common theme with this build. I can just spray my crystals and get 15 seconds. In fact, that's probably not the most efficient because you get 15 from one crystal, but you get the idea. That's just a fun interaction to be aware of. Furthermore, I have also gone for the 2-piece Lustrous set, which is from the Solstice event. This is very much so a non-important set bonus, but it does have a synergy with Yeartide Apex, which I wanted to point out, and that is the synergy it has with the 2-piece Photo Galvanic bonus, where it says receiving healing temporarily grants your solar weapons increased flinch resistance, handling, and reload speed. And because Yeartide Apex is a solar weapon and our stasis shards do heal us, I'll just damage myself a little bit here, and then I'll break the crystals, trigger Ion Adapter. But also, The healing that I get from that will trigger Photo Galvanic, as you can see on the left-hand side, and that'll just give me a little bit more reload speed on my Yeartide Apex, which is nice. And that's going to be happening basically all the time that we collect stasis shards, because the high likelihood is that we're not going to be full health all the time. So that bonus is going to be triggering. Again, not really important, but I thought I'd point it out in case you have a 2-piece Lustrous lying around and it fits into your build like it does with mine. Now I want to talk about some of our artifact perks, and I want to start with Fever and Chill in column 3. This will make it so rapid precision hits with solar weapons grants Radiant, rapid precision hits with stasis weapons grants Frost Armor. Now that is also a bit of a lie, because it is not necessarily precision hits. Kills also work for this. So as you can see here, I can get my precision hits, but if I get, I think it's 3 kills? There we go. 3 kills will give me 10 seconds of Radiant with Yeartide Apex, and that works with any solar weapon. Doesn't have to be precision hits. You know, you just get 3 kills and it'll refresh my Radiant all the way back to the top like it is there. So an additional source of Radiant on a stasis subclass is never not nice to have. Staying in column 3, we also have Frost Renewal. This will make it so when you have Frost Armor, taking critical damage releases a burst that freezes nearby combatants and grants Frost Armor to you and nearby allies, which is pretty nice. An extra survivability tool, refreshes your Frost Armor and so on. Then in column 3, we also have Refresh Threads. This mod actually helps out a ton, more than you actually realize, because it states that picking up an elemental pickup matching your subclass element, or picking up a Tangle while you have a Strand super equipped, grants energy to your least charged ability. So if my least charged ability, in this case, is my melee ability, if I expend both of them and I collect these stasis shards that they make, Refresh Threads is going to be active for every single one of those shards that I pick up. And as you can see, that's part of the reason why it takes so little shards to actually get all of our charges back. This artifact perk helps a lot. And even when it's gone, it's still going to be fine, because Whisper of Hunger, remember, is still going to be carrying a decent bunch of that. Then in column 4, we have Elemental Coalescence. This states that defeating a target has a chance to create an elemental pickup matching your equipped super element, so just more stasis shards, which is very nice. Then finally, in column 5, we have Shield Crush, which will make it so when you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage, so even more damage for our Howl of the Storm. Then I've also gone for Radiant Shrapnel as a nice added bonus. To go back to the loadouts for a second, if you wanted to mix it up just a little bit, I have an alternative suggestion, which is using a primary like Blast Furnace and then Dead Messenger, specifically on the solar variant, again, because it will synergize with Lustrous, and because Dead Messenger is a grenade launcher, again, it'll synergize with Ion Adapter, giving you that 15% damage resistance. And again, remember, all you need to do is break a crystal with Dead Messenger, and then you have the Ion Adapter perk, just like that. So just remember that. Now to wrap up with our armor mods, starting with the helmet, we have 2 copies of Hands-On so that you get bonus super energy from melee kills, helping us to get our Glacial Quake super back as fast as possible. Then moving on to the gauntlets, we have 2 melee fonts and then a heavy-handed, which in my case is going to boost my melee stat all the way to 180, and then the heavy-handed is just to make the occasional orb when we get kills with Howl of the Storm. Chest piece can be whatever. Then for the boots, we have a very important mod which you don't see on a lot of builds, and actually is probably only going to be relegated to stasis builds, matter of fact, and that is Elemental Charge. It states that collecting a Fire Sprite, Ionic Trace, Stasis Shard, or Void Breach, or destroying a Strand Tangle has an escalating chance to give you an armor charge. And because we are making so many shards, we are going to be getting non-stop armor charge from this, which is going to be feeding our melee fonts and keeping us with those good stats all the time. So very important mod. To be honest, you don't even need stacks on stacks. I had this here, but you could swap that for like a recuperation scavenger, something like that, up to you. In fact, I'll probably change that to a Strand Scavenger, because we don't need the extra armor charge that stacks on stacks gives us. We can just do with a scavenger and be totally fine. Then lastly, for the class item, we have Time Dilation, Powerful Attraction, and Outreach. Time Dilation to make our fonts last longer, Powerful Attraction so that it gives us the orbs in the closest vicinity when we use our class ability, and then Outreach to get a tiny bit more melee ability energy. Could honestly swap that for Special Finisher as well, but that's totally up to you. As far as the gameplay loop is concerned for this build, you basically just want to use your melees over and over again. I've said that a lot this video. I've said it over and over again. But yeah, just use your melees, use your crystal grenade, use your super as soon as you get it. Just spam everything. That's the whole point of this build. It's very brainless, very fit for a Titan, mind you. And yeah, just have fun with it. There is a chance that this build is going to get nerfed in the future just because of how easy it is to maintain the gameplay loop. As you can see, you don't even need kills to keep it going. So, you know, just enjoy it while you can. And, you know, it is just a very fun build. It's nice to be playing something other than Prismatic Titan. I like playing Behemoth. It's, you know, this season has been honestly great for Sandbox. The rest of the game, you know, it's alright. We've made a video about how that could be improved, but sandbox-wise, Strand is eating good. Void, maybe not so much. Arc is very good. Solar, very good. Behemoth, very good. you know, Sandbox team has been cooking, so, you know, props to them. Also, here is the fashion for the build if you wanted to go with it. I have gone for the very bland, super black, almost full Witcher set, as I think it goes very well with this ornament for the Syntheseps, but you can be more creative than I can if you want to. Anyway, the dim link to the build is going to be in the description if you want to copy the build hassle-free. And with that, we have come to the end of the video, so thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed the build. I hope you go and try it yourself, and I will see you in the next one. So thank you for watching, and goodbye for now, dear viewer.